AskReddit-Criminal Masterminds of Reddit. What is the worst crime you've gotten away with? Throw away time then. When I was 14, some guy pulled a knife on me and took my bike. The bike was worth just under $1,000. At the time I was with 2 friends, all on bikes. Another guy tried to take both of the other bikes, and also had a knife. So it is 3 versus 2. 3 unarmed 14-year-old kids, and 2 guys, I assumed around 20, later found him, who took my bike, to be 22, both with knives. I let the guy take my bike, because duck. I'm a little kid and I don't wanna get stabbed. I was scared, so I pretty much bailed. Another friend did the same, but one guy tried to fight him. He got slashed in the face and hand. He's blind in one eye but has all his fingers and his hand works fine, just a scar. Before you ask, it was my brother's bike. I was only going close to home so he let me ride it. There is no way I could have such a bike at 14. So that happened. The 3 of us were left there trying to figure out what the duck to do whilst my friend's face was ducking hanging off. I mean we were all 14, so pretty much shitting our pants already, but I almost passed out at his face and was sick in the gutter. I can honestly say we thought he was going to die. I've never been in such a ducked up situation in my life. So my friend stays with him whilst I go for help. I knock at the first house, it is dark, and some old guy told me to go away. I guess he thought I was just a dumb kid babbling and crying, so whatever. He was an asshole and he didn't help. I went to the next door neighbor, and one of the automatic light came on outside the door. So that is the first time I see that I'm ducking covered in blood on my hands and arms, and where I wiped my tears and mouth from sick. So this woman just stares at me in shock and calls her husband, so all her kids come out and start crying too. I couldn't even imagine such a cluster duck, but eventually he got me talking clear enough for him to understand and the police got called. We all run back to the road where it happened, and a guy with his dog has already stopped to see what the duck happened. He didn't have a cell though, so it was good the family had the police on the way. One ducking police car arrived. Despite me telling that a 14-year-old was ducking dying. A few moments later a paramedic car and an ambulance. Once the police established this was very ducking real, everything got busy fast. They had the helicopter up looking for the guys, and a bunch more ambulances came to check us for injuries. The street was all closed off for forensic stuff, and I couldn't count all the blowlights from police and medics. So yeah, he survived and we stayed friends, got new bikes and moved on. I never forgot it, and it ducked me up pretty bad for a while, being paranoid all the time and scared to go out with anything even slightly expensive like a phone or a watch even. 2 years later I'm on the train going to an interview for college, and my brother's bike is right there in the bike compartment thing. He had a bunch of different parts, so the bike was unique and I knew for a fact it was the one, but I didn't know what the duck to do. I just sat looking at it, but didn't have a cell on me to call anybody. A guy came and took the bike off the train and got off at the next stop. I thought I'd do something, so I got off the train after him and tried to follow. I didn't really think it through though, because hey, bikes are faster than feet. So he rode off, but I know which way he went out of the station. So for that night I'm thinking how ducking dumb I was to let it go. That could be the guy who stabbed my friend, and now it's gone. Ducking idiot, just wanted to beat myself up. But I decide to check every day for it. I got the same train for about 4 or 5 days and waited around the station for about a half hour with a cell phone this time. Eventually I saw it and followed on my bike. So now I see where he lives and when he travels properly, but still no idea if he is the guy. Maybe he just bought it on eBay or some shit. I told my brother, and he told the police. The police said that they can't positively ID it because we had no photos or receipts for the bike/parts, and we didn't record the serial number/stamp on the bottom. So I'm angry as duck that we can't get it back, and we can't find who was responsible, because hey, it was 2 years ago and the police have bigger things to do now. So I followed the guy over and over, just thinking what to do. Then one time he goes home, and I'd usually go to a shop nearby and then take the train back. As I'm walking back with a soda, he comes from the house with 4 other guys, and it is them who took the bikes. I don't know who the two extra guys were, but just other friends I guess. But for sure I ducking know it is the guy who took my bike, and more important the guy who took my friend's eye. So I tell the police again and again I know it is them, and ask my friend if he can ID him, and he says yes, but the police don't care now. It is too old, and they can't trust a 16-year-old kid to positively ID somebody for 2 years ago, even with the bikes. Ducking bullshit, so I'm angry at the police for not helping more. So me and my friend take my dad's truck this time. I got to 17 now, and we stopped until I could see him again come from the house. It took a few days, but then he says it is him. I ducking knew 100% anyway, and so now we both know this guy. So when we followed him we found his car and house, and one day did a hit and run on his car when he stopped. We just nudged the side of his car, and so he chased us to pay for damage. We stopped on a quiet road eventually, and pretended to be sorry, and oh, I didn't see you, etc. And then just ducking beat his ass. My friend was wanting to kill him, being totally serious, but that shit was too heavy. I stopped him when the guy was beaten bad enough, and well, it didn't feel any better. We just left him there on the road and went home. I was scared for a while that he maybe died and we'd be in jail forever, but then found the report in the news that he was in a coma. He eventually woken up and is in a wheelchair forever. I think he has brain damage forever, but I don't know. I always thought the revenge would make us feel better, and feel like we fixed it, but he still has his scar, and now the only people who suffer are his family who have to push his wheelchair and feed him and bath him and stuff. Now I'm 24, and I think we ducked up, but then I see my friend's face still, and I don't know. I think it was needed, but it wasn't right. TLDR, a guy took my friend's bike and stabbed him in the face, and he is blind in one eye. 2 years later we found the guy and beat him to a coma, and now he is disabled. When I was a kid, I had a fascination with fire and explosives, and built a lot of little firecracker things, rocket engines, stole black powder from my dad and whatnot. When I was 19, I had a bright idea. I got a CO2 cartridge, emptied it, and filled it with gunpowder. I put a long fuse in that, and put that inside a 20-ounce Mountain Dew bottle full of gasoline. I put a cigarette on the end of the fuse to act as a delay. A friend and I cruised around downtown looking for somewhere to put this thing. We came across an old van at the end of a quiet street with no houses nearby for quite a ways. It was a really rundown, abandoned area, and I knew nobody would be near. So I put this thing on the front passenger seat, lit the cigarette, and we got in the car and took off again. We drove down the freeway for a while, turned around, and came back to find the entire highway covered in thick, black smoke. We got close to the area, and I peered over the edge of the bridge. It seemed like my design had worked. The inner charge first turned the gas into a mist, then ignited it, pushing everything out, turning the whole van into one big engine cylinder. The hood was laying 15 feet away, the windows were all blown out, and the van was on fire from bumper to bumper. We got out of there, drove up to the bluffs where we could see it. We watched a whole lot of firefighters work on this van for the better part of an hour. It was quite an adrenaline rush. I made the mistake of telling a couple other friends about it, people I definitely should not have trusted. Not long after that, they and I got into a disagreement about something, and next thing I know, I'm on the phone with the police. They want me and my girlfriend to come down to the station to talk. So we go to the police station. They had received a tip that I was the one who set the fire. They questioned my girlfriend and I for 4 hours. Eventually they mentioned a detective who was a longtime friend of the family, who told them I had always had an interest in bomb making and such. I confessed. The cops came to my apartment and turned the place upside down. They ended up finding a couple of bottle rockets, a few shotgun shells, and a book on military history. I had been tipped off a day prior that this was coming, so I took everything in my place remotely bomb related, put it in a trash can, and dumped it in a porta potty to count as away. They brought me back to the police station for more questions. They asked me why I had chosen this particular van. I said it was because it was clearly abandoned and nobody was around for a long ways. They said, "So you didn't intend to hurt anyone with this thing?" I said no, of course not, I just wanted to see what it would do. They told me they weren't able to locate the owner of the van, and that it had previously been appraised at $50. They told me to go home, stay put, and expect a phone call. That was 14 years ago. I'm still waiting for the phone call. TLDR, I blew up a van with a homemade bomb. I am not a mastermind in any way, shape or form, but I was good. Throughout my mid-teens into my early 20s I was a criminal. I stole cars, robbed people, only in elevators cause of easy getaway, etc. By 23 I was a soldier for the triads in New York City. Graduated to armed robbery, carjacking, beatings, rival gang members. At 25 I was managing a nation massage parlor. Me and a few buddies got to break in the girls after they arrived in the States. We would sneak them in through South Street, very easy at the time. At 26, I got shot at and said, "Yo, duck this." My hands were shaking and I couldn't even get off one shot. After that I said, "Duck this isn't for me." At 27, I just upped and left for California one day without a word to anyone. 15 years later, I'm a registered architect and real estate developer out of Santa Monica with a beach house in Santa Barbara. There is 10 years or so worth of shit I did and never got popped. I don't know what the worst would be. Carjacking? Aiding and importing girls from China and trying the product before anyone else? I was more afraid of my father than the cops, so it kept me extra cautious. Extra careful planning in my robberies, which is why I only robbed people in elevators. Extra careful with who I included in my crew, etc. On a side note, I've always wanted to do an AMA regarding my past, but have no proof to offer because I never got caught. I can only assure everyone I'm not an internet troll looking for attention, but I'm curious about society's perspective on my life. Mainly due to the fact, I'm not supposed to be where I am today. During the recession, everyone was hurting except me, a high school dropout. I was being recruited by 3 different real estate development firms while everyone else, with college degrees and PhDs in hand, was being laid off. I'm 43 years old and roughly 4 to 7 years away from being able to retire. Life's not fair. I'm not supposed to be here, but at the same time life has taught me that the majority of people who walk the straight line in life will spend their entire lives struggling. When I was 12, I walked into a large Target-like store with my brother, grabbed the nicest bike we could find, walked it up to customer service counter, and asked to return the bike my brother got for his birthday. They asked if we had a receipt, to which we replied no. They apologized and said we needed to go home and get the receipt before we could return it. We asked if we were going to be able to leave the store with the bike if we didn't have a receipt. In response they called security over to escort us safely out, with the bike. It was too easy.